Here is our example finally for describing words using semantic mapping. And we're going to start with an adjective, and I'm also going to model an adverb. So adjectives are describing words for nouns. So we are going to start with an example of a tier 2 word, such as huge. This is a tier 2 word because it's less common and more specific than big. But it's not highly specific vocabulary. So this might be a good example of a stepping stone vocab for students. So what does the word mean? It means very big. So again, your student needs to know what big means, but we're drawing that connection that big and huge are related words. What can we use? What can we describe with this word? This obviously will vary wildly depending on what your target word is. We might say an elephant is huge. We might say a bridge is huge, or a building. You might say that your school is huge. What is a similar word? So synonyms or related words are what we're looking for here. So we already have big. We might say massive. For an older student, you might say immense. You might say very big. All of those sort of words. And this is where we can see the connections between a tier 1 vocab, a tier 2, and up to a tier 3. So immense is not a word that's used a lot in day-to-day conversation, particularly for our students at their age. But we're laying those foundations and making those connections. We're building that word of knowledge for our students. And finally, what is an opposite word? This is obviously dependent on your student knowing what opposites are, but you can make that judgment call depending on the student's age and their level of knowledge and language skills. So what is an opposite of huge? We could have small, tiny. A tier 3 word might be minuscule. Again, only using those tier 3 words if they're appropriate for your student. We might say very small because huge is very big. Okay, we're going to rub out our adjective example and move on to our adverb example. And adverbs, remember, are describing words for doing words. And our describing word, our adverb, is going to be quickly. Quick or quickly. What does it mean? It means to do something fast. What can we describe with this word? We can say that someone is running quickly. Someone might be talking quickly. We might say that they're writing quickly. Or they're walking quickly. What is a similar word? Well, we have one in our definition. Again, fast is a similar word to quickly. If someone's doing something quickly, we might say that they're rushing. So that's an example where we're crossing word types. So rushing can be a verb, or if you're rushing something, we're using it in that descriptive sense. Other similar words, Might be very fast, or for a younger student, or a student very into cars, you might say something like zooming. Something zooms when it's going quickly. Zooms. What is an opposite word? Again, depending on your student's age and vocabulary knowledge and understanding of basic concepts, you would include this or not. But an opposite word for quickly, most obvious is slowly. For an older student, a tier 3 word might be lethargically. Again, wouldn't be using that word for the majority of my students. That would be a high school level word. But again, if it comes up in, for example, biology, it might be a term that we need to be building those foundations for. Another opposite word for quickly could be very slow, or as an opposite maybe to zooms or zooming, you might say it's crawling. And you can talk about with your student in that example about metaphorical language and how something might not be crawling, but we can use crawling to describe the feeling of time and something taking a long time.